Hyunwoo walked through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building every day for 10 years. The building was so huge that it took him 30 minutes just to get from his office to the main assembly hall. Along the way, he passed hundreds of different alien species going about their daily work. Some aliens looked like giant insects with shiny shells. Others looked like walking trees with branches for arms. There were creatures made of living rock, beings that floated in the air like clouds, and species that changed colors like chameleons. Hyunwoo had gotten used to all of them over the years, but there was one thing in the assembly hall that always bothered him. One empty chair. The Great Assembly had 412 chairs arranged in perfect circles. Each chair was designed for a different species. The insect-like Krelians had chairs with holes for their wings. The rock creatures had heavy stone seats. The floating cloud beings had special energy fields instead of physical chairs. But right in the front row there was one chair that never had anyone sitting in it. It was a simple chair made for humanoid creatures. Above it hung a small sign that read, "Terra Reserved." Hyunwoo had asked other workers about the empty chair many times. Most of them would just shrug and say they didn't know. The older aliens would get quiet and change the subject. His supervisor once told him to stop asking questions about it. That only made him more curious. Hyunwoo worked in the Diplomatic Archives Department. His job was to organize old treaties and trade agreements. It was boring work, but it gave him access to many historical documents. He spent his free time searching through files looking for any mention of Terra or the empty chair. For months he found nothing. Then one day, while filing some very old documents, he noticed something strange. There were gaps in the historical records. Certain years had fewer documents than others. Some files had pages that seemed to be missing. He started making a list of all the missing information. Slowly a pattern emerged. All the gaps happened around the same time periods. All the missing files were marked with a classification code he had never seen before. XK Terra. Hyunwoo knew he was getting into dangerous territory. Classified files were not something a low-level archive worker was supposed to access. But the mystery of the empty chair had been bothering him for too long. He waited until late at night when the archive building was almost empty. Using his security clearance, he accessed the main computer system and searched for XK Terra. The computer asked for additional authorization. Hyunwoo tried several high-level access codes that he had seen supervisors use. On his 5th try, the system opened. What he found made his hands shake. Thousands of files filled his screen. Documents, videos, surveillance reports, scientific studies, military assessments, all about a planet called Earth and its inhabitants called humans. Hyunwoo opened the first file. It was a discovery report from 12,000 years ago. A Council exploration ship had found a small blue planet in a remote part of the galaxy. The planet had one intelligent species that called themselves humans. The report seemed normal at first. Humans were described as bipedal creatures with primitive technology. They had not yet developed space travel. They lived in tribal groups and fought wars with simple weapons. But then Hyunwoo found the follow-up reports. More ships had been sent to study the humans. What they found was disturbing. Humans were advancing faster than any species the Council had ever observed. In just a few hundred years, they went from using stone tools to building cities. Their population grew at an alarming rate. They showed incredible adaptability to different environments, but most concerning was their behavior during conflicts. Every other species in the galaxy had natural limits to their aggression. When faced with overwhelming odds, they would surrender or retreat. Humans did not. The reports showed humans fighting impossible battles and somehow winning. They would lose 90% of their forces and still keep fighting. When their cities were destroyed, they would build new ones. When diseases killed millions of them, the survivors would become stronger. One report compared humans to a virus, not because they were evil, but because they spread and adapted like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Hyunwoo read through hundreds of surveillance reports. Council agents had been watching Earth for thousands of years. They had seen humans survive ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and wars that should have destroyed them completely. Instead, humans kept growing stronger. The files showed that the Council had debated what to do about Earth many times. Some members wanted to make contact and invite humans to join galactic civilization. Others wanted to destroy Earth before humans could develop space travel. In the end, they chose a third option: containment. Special technology was placed around Earth's solar system to hide it from human observation. Any human spacecraft that got too close to the edge of their solar system would mysteriously malfunction and turn back. Radio signals from Earth were blocked from reaching other parts of the galaxy. The Council created an entire department dedicated to watching Earth. Agents lived among humans, disguised as ordinary people. They made sure human technology developed slowly. They prevented humans from making certain discoveries that might lead to faster space travel. The empty chair in the assembly hall was not waiting for humans to join the Council. It was a reminder of the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Hyun-woo found a document titled The Human Problem Final Assessment. It was written by the Council's top scientists and military leaders. The conclusion was clear. Humans could never be allowed to join galactic civilization. Not because they were evil or primitive, but because they were too dangerous. The document explained that humans had a psychological trait that made them incompatible with other species. They refused to accept limitations. They would not stay in assigned territories or follow population controls. They would constantly push boundaries and challenge authority. Worse, they were incredibly good at convincing other species to help them. Human diplomats were described as dangerously persuasive. Several council agents who had lived among humans for too long had started sympathizing with them. The final page of the document was a single sentence that made Hyun-woo's blood run cold. If humans ever reach the stars, the current galactic order will cease to exist within 3 generations. Hyun-woo sat back in his chair, staring at the screen. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was wrong. The Council was not a peaceful organization that brought species together. It was a prison warden, keeping humanity locked away from the rest of the universe. He thought about all the times he had walked past that empty chair, wondering who was supposed to sit there. Now he knew, and he understood why the chair had to stay empty. But as he closed the files and prepared to leave, one thought kept bothering him. All the surveillance reports were several years old. The most recent file was dated 5 years ago. In a containment operation that had lasted thousands of years, 5 years without updates seemed strange. Hyun-woo made a decision that would change his life forever. He copied all the files onto a portable drive and tucked it into his jacket. He needed to know what had happened in those missing 5 years. And deep down, he suspected that the empty chair might not stay empty much longer. The galaxy's greatest secret was about to become its greatest crisis. Dr. Yoonji had been studying alien minds for 40 years. She was the Council's best expert on how different species think and behave. Her job was to understand what made each alien race unique, and more importantly, what made them predictable. Every species she had studied followed certain patterns. They all had limits to their aggression. They all had natural stopping points when facing overwhelming danger. They all valued survival over victory when the odds became impossible. Humans were different. Yoonji had spent the last 15 years secretly studying surveillance footage from Earth. The Council's watchers had recorded millions of hours of human behavior during wars, disasters, and other crisis situations. What she found in those recordings disturbed her more than anything she had encountered in her career. She sat in her private laboratory, surrounded by screens showing various human conflicts throughout history. On one screen, she watched human soldiers fighting even after their army was completely surrounded. On another, she observed human civilians rebuilding their city while enemy bombs were still falling on it. The most disturbing footage came from a human war that happened about 70 years ago. An entire human city was under siege for over 800 days. The attackers had cut off all food and supplies. Most of the population was starving. Any other species would have surrendered within weeks. Humans not only refused to surrender, they got more creative in their resistance. They ate tree bark and grass to survive. They melted down metal from buildings to make weapons. They dug tunnels to sneak past enemy lines. When the siege finally ended, the humans had somehow managed to push back the attackers. Yoonji had shown this footage to other council scientists. Their reactions were always the same: horror and disbelief. The Krillian observers called it impossible behavior. The rock creatures said it went against all natural laws of self-preservation. But that was just one example. Yoonji had found hundreds of similar cases throughout human history. She opened another file on her computer. This one contained psychological profiles of individual humans who had been studied by council agents. The agents lived among humans for years, carefully observing their behavior and reporting back to the council. One report was about a human named Jiho who lived on Earth about 30 years ago. He had been diagnosed with a terminal disease that should have killed him within months. Instead of accepting his fate like any rational being would, Jiho spent every day researching his condition and trying different treatments. He changed his entire lifestyle. He moved to a different climate. He tried experimental medicines. He pushed his body through painful physical therapy every day. Most remarkably, he maintained hope even when all medical experts told him there was no chance of survival. Jiho lived for 8 more years. His disease never went away, but his refusal to accept defeat kept him alive far longer than should have been possible. The council agent who observed Jiho wrote, "This human's behavior defies all logical thought patterns. Any other species would have used their remaining time to enjoy final moments with family. Jiho instead chose to fight an unwinnable battle and somehow prolonged his life through sheer determination." Yunji had dozens of similar stories. Humans who survived in environments that should have killed them. Humans who solved problems by refusing to believe the problems were unsolvable. Humans who achieved impossible things simply because they would not accept that those things were impossible. She pulled up another file, this one containing military analysis from Commander Taeho. He had run computer simulations to predict what would happen if humans gained access to galactic technology and joined the Council. The results were terrifying. In every simulation, regardless of the starting conditions, humans would dominate the galaxy within 3 generations, not through conquest or violence, but through relentless expansion and adaptation. The computer model showed that humans would spread to every habitable planet they could find. They would form alliances with weaker species and protect them from stronger ones. They would share their technology freely, making other species dependent on them. Most disturbing of all, they would inspire other species to adopt human-like behavior. Commander Taeho had identified this as the greatest threat to galactic stability. Humans did not just refuse to accept limits themselves, they convinced others to break their own limits too. Yunji remembered reading reports from council agents who had lived among humans too long. These agents started showing unusual behavior patterns. They became more willing to take risks. They questioned orders from their superiors. They developed what the reports called human-like persistence in pursuing their goals. Several agents had to be recalled and given psychological treatment to remove these contaminated thought patterns. The files contained one particularly troubling case study. A council agent named Kyung-ho had been assigned to monitor human scientific development. His job was to subtly discourage human researchers from making breakthroughs that might lead to faster space travel. After 5 years among humans, Kyung-ho stopped following his orders. Instead of slowing human progress, he started secretly helping human scientists solve complex problems. When the council discovered his betrayal, they found that Kyung-ho had completely adopted human psychological patterns. During his interrogation, Kyung-ho said, "You don't understand what they're capable of. We've been thinking too small. Humans don't just survive. They make everything around them better. We should be learning from them, not hiding from them." Kyung-ho was sent to a psychiatric facility for treatment. The official report stated that he had suffered critical psychological contamination from prolonged exposure to human behavior patterns. Yoon-ji opened her personal research notes. Over the years, she had developed a theory about why humans were so different from other galactic species. Most species evolved in environments where survival meant avoiding danger and conserving resources. They developed instincts that told them when to retreat, when to surrender, and when to accept their limitations. Humans evolved differently. Earth was an unusually hostile planet with frequent climate changes, natural disasters, and dangerous predators. Survival on Earth meant constantly adapting to new threats and challenges. Over millions of years, humans developed psychological traits that helped them thrive in chaos rather than stability. They learned to see obstacles as problems to solve rather than barriers to accept. They developed an instinct to push forward when others would pull back. These traits made humans incredibly effective survivors on their home planet. But in a galactic civilization built on stability and predictable behavior, those same traits made humans a fundamental threat to the existing order. Yoon-ji's research had led her to a disturbing conclusion. The Council was not just afraid of what humans might do if they joined galactic civilization. They were afraid of what humans might inspire other species to become. The galaxy had been peaceful and stable for thousands of years because every species knew their place and accepted their limitations. Humans threatened to change that balance by showing other species that limitations could be overcome. She looked at her latest analysis report, the one she had been afraid to submit to the Council leadership. Her conclusion was clear: containment of humanity was becoming impossible. The surveillance reports showed that human technology was advancing faster than ever. Their space program was making rapid progress despite subtle interference from Council agents. More concerning, humans were starting to ask questions about the empty spaces in their star maps and the strange malfunctions that affected their spacecraft at the edge of their solar system. Worst of all, some Council agents were beginning to admire the humans they were supposed to be controlling. Yunji realized that the galaxy faced an impossible choice. They could continue trying to contain humanity until the containment inevitably failed, or they could make contact with humans and try to manage the consequences. Either way, the galaxy was about to change forever. The only question was whether that change would happen on the Council's terms or on humanity's terms. She closed her files and prepared to submit her final report. After 15 years of study, her recommendation was simple. The Council needed to make a decision about humanity immediately, because humans were not going to stay contained much longer. So-Min had lived on Earth for 40 years, and she was starting to forget what her real face looked like. The biosuit she wore made her appear completely human. It covered her natural purple skin and modified her bone structure to match human anatomy. She had chosen the appearance of a middle-aged Korean woman with dark hair and brown eyes. The suit even replicated human biological functions. She ate human food, slept human hours, and aged at human rates. For 4 decades, she had lived among humans as one of them, and sometimes she felt like she actually was one of them. So-Min worked as a university professor in Seoul. Her cover identity was that of a physics researcher studying renewable energy. In reality, her job was much more complex and dangerous. She was one of the Watchers, an elite group of Council agents whose mission was to monitor human development and prevent them from advancing too quickly. The Watchers were not ordinary spies. They lived entire lifetimes among the species they monitored. They formed relationships, built careers, and integrated completely into human society. Some Watchers had been on Earth for over a century. Their job was to guide human development along safe paths. When human scientists got too close to breakthrough discoveries that might lead to advanced space travel, the Watchers would subtly redirect their research. They would cause laboratory accidents, introduce false data, or simply convince researchers to focus on different projects. It was delicate, work that required perfect understanding of human psychology and behavior. So-Min had prevented dozens of technological breakthroughs over the years. She had sabotaged fusion energy experiments that were progressing too quickly. She had misdirected research into faster-than-light communication. She had even manipulated government funding to slow down space exploration programs. But lately, her job was becoming much harder. Humans were advancing faster than the Watchers could control. Every time they blocked one research project, humans would find 3 other ways to approach the same problem. When the Watchers caused setbacks in one country, other countries would make even faster progress. Worse, humans had started collaborating across national boundaries in ways that made monitoring them extremely difficult. International research projects involved hundreds of scientists from dozens of countries. The Watchers could not infiltrate all of them. So-Min sat in her apartment reviewing her latest report for Jin Ho, her handler back at Council headquarters. The news was not good. Human space technology was advancing rapidly despite all Watcher interference. They had built space stations, landed on their moon multiple times, and sent robotic probes to other planets in their solar system. Most concerning, they were seriously planning missions to send humans to Mars within the next decade. But the real problem was not their technology. The real problem was their attitude. So-Min had observed something that terrified her more than any weapons or spacecraft. Humans were starting to look up at the stars with serious intent. They were no longer content to explore their own planet or even their own solar system. They wanted to reach other star systems. She had attended scientific conferences where human researchers discussed interstellar travel, as if it was inevitable rather than impossible. They debated different methods for traveling to nearby stars. They calculated how long such journeys would take. They designed spacecraft that could support human crews for decades or centuries. Any other species would see the vast distances between stars and accept that interstellar travel was impractical. Humans saw those same distances as engineering challenges to be solved. So Min remembered attending a presentation by a human astrophysicist named Dong Wu. He had spent years studying the closest star systems to Earth. During his presentation, he showed detailed plans for an unmanned probe that could reach the nearest star in about 20 years. After the presentation, someone in the audience asked if such a journey was worth the enormous cost and effort. Dong Wu's answer had given So Min nightmares. The question is not whether it's worth the effort, he had said. The question is how we can make the effort smaller and the results bigger. We'll keep working on this problem until we solve it, because that's what humans do. We don't accept that things are impossible. That was the moment So Min realized that containment was failing. She had sent increasingly urgent reports to Jinho over the past few years. Human development was accelerating beyond the Watcher's ability to control. The techniques that had worked for centuries were becoming useless. Jinho's responses had been frustrating. He kept asking for more time, more detailed interference, more creative sabotage. He did not seem to understand that the problem was not the Watcher's methods. The problem was that humans could not be contained by any method. So Min's latest report contained information that would probably cause panic at Council headquarters. Human scientists had detected anomalies at the edge of their solar system. They had noticed that spacecraft malfunctions always happened in the same regions of space. Some researchers were starting to suspect that the malfunctions were not natural phenomena. Even worse, humans were developing new types of spacecraft that were more resistant to the interference systems the Council had placed around Earth's solar system. These new designs used different propulsion methods and navigation systems that the containment technology was not designed to handle. So Min knew it was only a matter of time before a human spacecraft successfully reached the edge of the solar system and discovered the Council's monitoring stations. She had tried to slow down the spacecraft development programs, but humans had too many independent research groups working on the same problems. When she sabotaged one project, 2 others would make breakthroughs that advanced the technology even faster. The most disturbing development was happening in human popular culture. Movies, books, and television shows about space exploration were becoming extremely popular. Humans were not just developing the technology to reach the stars, they were developing the cultural desire to do so. So Min had observed similar patterns in human history. When humans collectively decided they wanted something, they usually found a way to get it regardless of how difficult or dangerous it seemed. They had crossed dangerous oceans to explore new continents. They had climbed the highest mountains just to prove they could. They had even traveled to their own moon, despite the enormous technical challenges and risks involved. Now they were turning that same determination toward interstellar space. So Min finished her report with a recommendation that she knew Jinho would not want to hear. The Watchers needed to be pulled out of Earth immediately. Containment had failed, and it was only a matter of time before humans discovered the truth about galactic civilization. The Council needed to make a decision about humanity before humans made the decision for them. She encrypted the report and sent it through the hidden communication system the Watchers used to contact Council headquarters. Then she sat back and waited for Jinho's response. While she waited, So Min looked out her apartment window at the night sky. Somewhere out there, hidden among the stars, was the galaxy that she came from. A galaxy that had been stable and peaceful for thousands of years. That galaxy was about to meet humanity, and So Min knew that nothing would ever be the same. She had lived among humans long enough to understand what made them special. They did not just adapt to their environment. They changed their environment to suit their needs. They did not just survive challenges. They turned challenges into opportunities. When humans finally reached the stars, they would not just join galactic civilization. They would transform it completely. So Min realized that she was looking forward to seeing what would happen next. After 40 years of trying to hold back human progress, she found herself curious about what humans might accomplish if they were allowed to reach their full potential. That curiosity worried her more than anything else in her report. It meant that she was starting to think like a human, The Watchers were supposed to remain objective observers. They were not supposed to develop emotional attachments to the species they monitored. But humans had a way of making people care about their success, even when that success threatened everything else in the galaxy. So Min closed her laptop and went to bed, knowing that this might be one of her last nights on Earth. Soon, the Council would have to decide what to do about humanity, and humanity would finally learn that they were not alone in the universe. Captain Minsu had been dreaming about this moment his entire life. He stood on the bridge of humanity's first interstellar probe, watching the view screen as they approached the edge of the solar system. The spacecraft New Horizon had taken 15 years to build, and another 3 years to reach this point in space. Minsu and his crew of 12 were making history, as the first humans to travel, beyond the influence of their own sun. But what they found out here was not what anyone had expected. "Captain," called out his navigation officer Young Ho, "we're detecting artificial structures ahead. Multiple objects very large, arranged in a pattern around our solar system." Minsu felt his heart racing. The implications were staggering. Artificial structures meant intelligent life. Intelligence meant that humans were not alone in the universe. "How large are we talking about?" Minsu asked. "Each structure is approximately 2 kilometers long," Young Ho replied. "They appear to be made of materials we don't recognize." "And Captain?" "There are dozens of them. They form a complete ring around our solar system." The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this information. They had come out here expecting to find empty space and distant stars. Instead, they had discovered evidence of a massive alien construction project that surrounded their entire home system. "Are they responding to our presence?" Minsu asked his communications officer Hee-jin. "Unknown, sir. But they're definitely active. I'm detecting energy signatures and what appears to be communication signals between the structures." Minsu made a decision that would change human history forever. "Send a standard first contact message. All frequencies, maximum power. Let them know we come in peace and want to communicate." As Hee-jin sent the message, every person on the bridge held their breath. They were about to become humanity's first ambassadors to an alien civilization. The response came faster than expected. Instead of a reply message, one of the alien structures suddenly changed course and began moving toward their ship. "Captain, we have an incoming vessel," Young Ho announced. "It's moving very fast, but not aggressively. It appears to be trying to intercept us." "All stop," Minsu ordered. "Let's see what they want to tell us." The alien ship was unlike anything in human imagination. It was smooth and curved, made of what looked like living metal that shifted colors as it moved. It positioned itself directly in front of the human probe and began transmitting a signal. "I'm receiving a transmission," Hye-jin reported. It's in Korean, Captain." The entire bridge crew turned to stare at her. An alien ship was communicating with them in perfect Korean. "Put it on speakers," Minsu said quietly. A voice filled the bridge, speaking clear Korean with what sounded like a Seoul accent. "Human vessel New Horizon. This is Ambassador Hyunwoo of the Galactic Council. I request permission to come aboard your ship. We have much to discuss." Minsu felt like his world was spinning. Not only were there aliens, but one of them spoke perfect Korean and knew the name of their ship. "Permission granted," Minsu replied. "We'll prepare our docking bay." 20 minutes later, Minsu found himself face-to-face with Ambassador Hyunwoo in the ship's small conference room. The alien looked completely human, middle-aged, wearing simple clothes that could have come from any store on Earth. "You're not human," Minsu said. It was not a question. "No, I am not," Hyunwoo replied. "But I have been living among humans for 10 years, studying your people and your culture. My real appearance would be disturbing to you. This form is more conducive to communication." "How long have you known about us?" Minsu asked. Hyunwoo paused as if considering how much to reveal. "The Galactic Council has been aware of humanity for over 12,000 years. We have been watching Earth since your species first developed agriculture." The room fell silent. Minsu felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. 12,000 years. The aliens had been watching humanity since the dawn of civilization. "Why haven't you made contact before now?" asked Dr. Seo-jun, the mission's chief scientist. "Because," Hyunwoo said carefully, "the Council was not certain that contact would be safe." "Safe for whom?" Minsu asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Safe for the galaxy," Hyunwoo replied. Captain Minsu, I need you to understand something. The galaxy is home to over 400 intelligent species. The Galactic Council has maintained peace and stability among these species for thousands of years. The introduction of humanity into this civilization would represent the greatest change in galactic history. Dr. Seojun leaned forward. Are you saying humans are dangerous? I am saying humans are unique. Hyunwoo chose his words carefully. Your species possesses psychological traits that do not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. You do not accept limitations the way other species do. You do not surrender when faced with impossible odds. You do not stay within assigned boundaries. Minsu felt a mix of pride and concern. That sounds like you're describing us as a threat. Not a threat, Hyunwoo said. A change agent. If humans join galactic civilization, nothing will remain the same. The Council has spent thousands of years debating what to do about this situation. What kind of debate? Asked Young-ho. Hyunwoo's expression became grim. There have been 3 main proposals. The first was to make contact and invite humanity to join the Council as a junior member species, with restrictions on expansion and technology sharing. And the second proposal? Minsu asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. Complete sterilization of Earth before humans could develop interstellar travel. The conference room became very quiet. Every human in the room understood what that meant. The aliens had seriously considered committing genocide against the entire human race. What was the third proposal? Dr. Seojun asked. Indefinite containment. Surround Earth's solar system with monitoring stations and prevent humans from reaching interstellar space. This is the option the Council chose. Minsu looked around the room at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. The mysterious equipment failures that had plagued Earth's space program for decades. The satellites that stopped working when they got too far from Earth. The strange energy readings at the edge of the solar system. It had all been deliberate. You've been sabotaging our space program. Minsu said, We have been guiding your development along safer paths, Hyunwoo admitted. The containment program has been in effect for over 3,000 years. It was designed to prevent exactly what is happening right now. But we're here anyway, Young-ho pointed out. Yes, Hyunwoo said. You are. Which means containment has failed. Your species advances too quickly and adapts too well. Every obstacle we placed in your path, you eventually overcame. Every setback we caused, you recovered from stronger than before. Dr. Seojun asked the question that everyone was thinking. So what happens now? Hyunwoo stood up and walked to the conference room window. Outside, the alien monitoring stations were visible as tiny points of light against the starfield. Now the Council must make the choice they have been avoiding for 12,000 years, he said. Humanity has reached interstellar space. There is no putting you back in containment. The galaxy must decide how to deal with the fact that humans are now part of galactic civilization, whether the Council wants them or not. Minsu felt the weight of history settling on his shoulders. His crew had come out here to explore space and search for signs of alien life. Instead, they had triggered the greatest diplomatic crisis in galactic history. What do you recommend? Minsu asked. Hyunwoo turned back to face the humans. I recommend that you return to Earth and prepare your people for what comes next. The Council will send representatives to make official first contact within the next year. When they arrive, humanity will need to speak with one voice. And if we can't agree on what to say, Dr. Seojun asked, then the Council will make the decision for you, Hyunwoo replied, and I can promise you that humanity will not like the decision they make. Minsu realized that his mission had just changed completely. They had come out here to explore. Now they were going home to prepare humanity for its greatest challenge. The empty space around Earth was not empty at all. It was filled with watchers, guardians, and judges who had been debating humanity's fate for longer than human civilization had existed. Now that debate was about to end, and humanity would finally learn whether they would be welcomed into the galaxy or destroyed by it. Minsu looked at his crew and made a decision. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to get home and warn everyone about what's coming. The age of human isolation was over. The age of galactic politics was about to begin. 6 months after Captain Minsu's discovery, the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council looked different than it had in 12,000 years. For the first time since its construction, every seat was occupied. Representatives from all 412 member species had gathered for this historic session. Even species that rarely left their homeworlds had sent delegates. The hall buzzed with nervous energy as creatures of every imaginable shape and size discussed the issue that had brought them together. At the center of all this, attention sat Dr. Yujin in the chair that had been empty for millennia. She was Earth's chosen representative, selected by a unified human government after months of intense global negotiations. Yujin had been a relatively unknown diplomat before this assignment. She had worked for the Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs, specializing in international trade agreements. Nothing in her background had prepared her for negotiating humanity's survival with an entire galaxy. But she had been chosen precisely because she was not a politician or a military leader. The Human Selection Committee had wanted someone who could speak for humanity without representing any single nation or ideology. Now she sat in Earth's throne, looking around at hundreds of alien beings who were about to decide whether her entire species would be allowed to live. Council Chairman Vex 9, a towering crystalline being who had led the galaxy for over a century, called the session to order. His voice resonated through translation devices that converted his crystal chime language into sounds every species could understand. "We are gathered to address the human question," Chairman Vex 9 announced. "After 12,000 years of debate and observation, we must finally decide humanity's place in galactic civilization." The hall fell silent. This moment had been building for longer than human recorded history. "Dr. Yujin of Earth will address the council first," the chairman continued. "You may present humanity's case." Yujin stood slowly. She had practiced this speech hundreds of times, but facing 400 alien species made her feel very small and very alone. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustics. "I stand before you as the voice of 8 billion human beings who until 6 months ago had no idea that you existed." She paused, looking around the hall at the incredible diversity of alien life forms. "I have read your files on humanity. I know that you have been watching us for thousands of years. I know that you have seen our wars, our violence, and our seemingly endless conflicts. I understand why many of you view humans as dangerous." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Several species were known to favor immediate action against Earth. "But I also know that your watchers have seen our capacity for growth, for cooperation, and for solving impossible problems. They have seen humans risk their lives to save strangers. They have seen us work together across every barrier of race, religion, and nationality when faced with common challenges." Yujin activated a holographic display that showed images from Earth's history. Pictures of human achievements flashed in the air above the assembly. Cities, art, music, scientific discoveries, acts of heroism and compassion. "You fear us because we do not accept limitations," Yujin continued. "You are right to fear this, but you are wrong about why it makes us dangerous." The hall grew even quieter. Even the translator devices seemed to hum more softly. "We are not dangerous because we will conquer you," Yujin said. "We are dangerous because we will inspire you. We will show you what becomes possible when you refuse to accept that things cannot be changed." Commander Taeho, representing the galaxy's military forces, stood to interrupt. "Dr. Yujin, our analysis clearly shows that human expansion would destabilize every existing power structure in the galaxy. Your species would dominate through sheer persistence and adaptability." "Commander Taeho," Yujin replied, "your analysis assumes that domination is our goal. It is not. Our goal is exploration, discovery, and growth, not just for ourselves, but for everyone we encounter." She changed the holographic display to show collaborative scientific projects from Earth's recent history. "When humans encounter a problem, we do not just solve it for ourselves. We share the solution with anyone who needs it. When we make a discovery, we publish it freely for others to use. When we develop new technology, we use it to help other humans regardless of their nationality or background." Dr. Yunji, the xenopsychologist, spoke from her seat. "Dr. Yujin, your own human history shows constant warfare and competition between human groups. How can you claim humans are naturally cooperative?" Yujin nodded. "Dr. Yunji, you are absolutely correct. Humans do fight among ourselves, but we also have an unusual ability to set aside those fights when faced with external challenges. Our most remarkable achievements have happened when humans work together despite their differences." She changed the display again, showing images of international cooperation. Space stations built by multiple nations, scientific research shared across borders, humanitarian aid flowing from rich countries to poor ones. The question before this council is not whether humans will change the galaxy, Yujin said. We will. The question is whether that change will happen with your cooperation or despite your opposition. The hall erupted in voices as different species debated among themselves. Chairman Vex 9 called for order. Dr. Yujin, the chairman said, the council has prepared 3 options for humanity's future. First, humans may join the council as a restricted member species. Your expansion would be limited, your technology monitored, and your population controlled. Yujin listened without expression. Second, Earth would be placed under permanent quarantine. Humans would be allowed to develop within your solar system, but forbidden from traveling to other star systems. The hall waited for the third option. Third, if humanity cannot accept either of the first 2 options, the council would implement the final protocol. Earth would be sterilized to prevent human expansion into galactic space. The silence that followed was absolute. Every being in the hall understood what was at stake. Yujin stood again. When she spoke, her voice was calm but firm. Honorable Chairman, with respect, humanity chooses a 4th option. Shocked voices filled the hall. There was no 4th option. The council had debated for millennia and identified only 3 possible solutions. We choose partnership, Yujin said. Not as junior members or restricted species, but as equals. We offer to share our unique perspective and capabilities with the galaxy, while learning from your thousands of years of experience. Commander Tejo stood again. That is unacceptable. Humans cannot be trusted with unlimited access to galactic civilization. Commander, Yujin replied, your own reports show that humans excel at solving problems that other species consider impossible. Your galaxy has been stable for 12,000 years. Stability is valuable, but it can also mean stagnation. She gestured to the empty sections of the assembly hall, spaces that had been built for new species that never joined the council. When was the last time your civilization made a major breakthrough in science or technology? When was the last time you explored a new region of space or contacted a new species? When was the last time anyone in this galaxy achieved something that seemed impossible? The hall grew quiet as the representatives considered her questions. You have built a perfect civilization, Yujin continued. Perfect, stable, and stagnant. You have solved the problem of conflict by avoiding all risks, but you have also stopped growing. Ambassador Hyunwoo, who had been quietly observing from the diplomatic section, stood to speak. Dr. Yujin raises an important point, he said. During my time among humans, I observed their remarkable ability to turn problems into opportunities. Perhaps the galaxy needs that perspective. Other voices joined the discussion. Some species expressed interest in human partnership. Others warned of the dangers of human expansion. The debate continued for hours. Species that had barely spoken to each other in centuries argued passionately about humanity's future. Finally, Chairman Vex 9 called for a vote. The results were closer than anyone had expected. By a narrow margin, the Council voted to accept humanity as full members of galactic civilization, but the vote came with conditions. Humans would be watched carefully. Any sign of aggressive expansion or domination would trigger immediate intervention. Humanity would have 1 generation to prove that they could be trusted partners rather than threats. Yujin accepted the terms on behalf of Earth. As the session ended and the representatives began to leave, Ambassador Hyunwoo approached Yujin. Congratulations, he said. You have achieved something many thought impossible. This is just the beginning, Yujin replied. Now we have to prove that we deserve the chance you've given us. Hyunwoo smiled. Something tells me that will be the easy part. Humans seem to be very good at exceeding expectations. 3 months later, the first joint human-alien exploration mission departed for a previously unexplored region of the galaxy. The crew included humans and representatives from 12 different species. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was expanding again. The empty throne was finally occupied, and the universe would never be the same. 10 years later, as Ambassador So-min watched mixed crews of humans and aliens working together on stations throughout the galaxy,